Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Teresa Ryan. I'm a lecturer in tourism and events at the School of Hospitality and Management and Tourism at TU Dublin. And I'm your host for today's event, which is brought to you by the Event Industry Association of Ireland and the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. I'd like to begin by welcoming Minister Martin's representatives here today, Mary Nash, Alison Geraghty and Letitia Stupinski. They're going to be explaining the LPSS scheme. But before we do that, I'd like to hand over to Mary Weir, co-founder of the Event Industry Association of Ireland, to say a few words.
Thank you, Teresa, and good afternoon to everyone. To Teresa for hosting our event today. And we are delighted to welcome over 550 people who have registered for the webinar this afternoon. I would like to echo Teresa's thanks to Minister Martin's department for their engagement with us on this webinar. And the EIAI looks forward to thanking her in person when we meet her this Thursday. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the support of Is Catapult and streams.live for their tech and production assistance, and the School of Hospitality, Management and Tourism at TU Dublin for lending us Teresa for the afternoon. I would also like to thank our team at the Event Industry Association of Ireland, all who give of their time voluntarily and without whom this event would not be possible. The Event Industry Association of Ireland was formed in 2014 by practitioners and service providers from both public and private sectors. Our membership currently stands at 515 members, representing over 12,500 workers from across all sectors of the industry, from our freelance crew and event managers to event organisers, promoters and suppliers within the industry, right across to local authorities, public bodies and industry representative organisations. Our voice represents all sectors of this industry in Ireland to support growth, learning and professionalism through one collective voice for advocacy, learning, networking and collaboration. If you are not already a member of the Event Industry Association of Ireland, please click on the link below to register with us today. Membership is currently free. Our expertise and assistance is available always to our members, and particularly at the moment, our support is currently available for completion of application forms and provision of information on grant schemes and business supports. Before I hand back to Teresa, at the request of the department and in support of our colleagues at Minding Creative Minds, we would like to share some information on Minding Creative Minds in the following slide regarding their services, and we will be back to you in about 30 seconds, at which stage we will be handing back to Teresa. Thank you all for attending this afternoon.
Thank you, Mary. I'm now going to hand you over to Mary Nash and the team from the department, and they're going to explain the LPSS scheme, its application process and criteria.
Thank you, Teresa. My name is Mary Nash. I'm a Principal Officer in the Culture Division of the Department of Minister Martin's Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. With me today are Letitia Stupinski, who worked on the pilot scheme, and Alison Geraghty, who has since joined the team. Firstly, I would like to thank the EIAI for organising this seminar, and in particular, Is Catapult. Isn't technology amazing? I myself struggle with IT, and the people at Catapult have made the events industry and this whole webinar very, very easy for me. So straight to the scheme anyway. Mostly Letitia will talk you through this. So the live performance support scheme, in 2020 we ran a pilot, a very successful pilot. We provided thousands of days of employment and a great body of artistic output. So the biggest problem was there just wasn't enough money. We had 5 million. So Minister Martin has provided 25 million this time round, which is 5 times as much. So 5 times as much employment and 5 times as much artistic output. So the main features of the scheme are it will be open to promoters, producers and venues. And I would like to emphasize promoters and producers because there was a belief last time around among some sectors that you would have to have a venue to apply. The grants will range from €10,000 up, and it will support activity output, artistic output and activity happening before the 30th of September 2021. So with that, I would like to hand you over to our resident expert, Letitia Stepensky.
Okay. Hi, good morning. My name is Letitia and I'm one of the administrators on the scheme. The aim of this session this morning is to walk through the applications process, walk through the application form section by section, and hopefully in doing so, I hope to answer any questions you might have in completing your application. Some of the sections are self-explanatory, so I might skip some of those and focus on the areas that need further explanation. We're not taking questions right now, but feel free to send in questions and they'll be addressed on the gov.ie website on our FAQ section in the next couple of days. So I'm going to jump straight in and we're going to start. Here we go. So the first of all is to remember at the very start of this to read the guidelines prior to completing the application, because a lot of this will answer any questions that you may have and will help you gear your application to what it is that we're looking for throughout the scheme. To remind you that this scheme is a competitive process. Because we have limited funding and a large number of applications are anticipated, it is likely that not eligible applications will receive funding. Eligibility alone doesn't guarantee that you will receive funding, and applicants should be aware that the scheme may be oversubscribed. So I'm just going to go into the opening paragraphs on your application form. So the top of the application form, it tells you where to find the guidelines and the FAQs and the application form. We're going to just flag that the application process this time is a bit different from the pilot scheme, both the process and the eligibility criteria. So just please, again, read the guidelines very closely to make sure that both your event and you are eligible to apply for the scheme. Once your application is completed, we're going to ask you to email it in one attachment and email it to Live Performance 21 or 2021, and in the subject matter have Live Performance Support Scheme. There is, on the application process, you're going to ask for evidence of funding. Make sure you put that in together with the application and scan it all as one document. Okay. All right then. Sorry, I'm just going to go on to this now. So we're just going to go through the applicant details. So if you just go through the first section there, you'll see we're asking for your legal name and your trading name, particularly if they're different, just so we can look for your application through both names if you have any queries. Your address, your air code, we will need your air code for future correspondence. And I think the rest of that is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, just hold on to this. All right, sorry. So up to section 2, it's going to ask you to confirm whether or not you have received public sector funding. Examples of payments that are allowed under this would be your CRSS, your CBAS, your PUP. They're all classed as COVID supports. And I'll just bring it to section 3 now of the application form. And I'm going to ask you again to just make sure you understand what you're being asked for. Failure to complete this section will affect your application. This section is going to be reviewed to establish your experience in running events, and we'd ask you to take particular care to make sure that you're putting your best case forward in regard to your experience. So the top part of the form on section 3 is an overview of your activity. So I'll just go through it here. So for the year, so whatever year that you're going to discuss, 2018, the type of event, if it's a music event, is it a comedy event, is it a theatre production, the principal performer and the name of your event. So if it was a music event, you'd name your principal artist. If it was a theatre production, the name of your production. The number of people you've employed, whether they be full-time, part-time, if they were a contract for service, contract of service, or for service. But then we have the number of tickets sold for that particular event and your ticket revenue generated. So then on the second part of this page, we are asking then to just, this is more summary information. And it's more detailed in relation to your numbers. So we're asking for the number of events you've done for each year, the number of tickets that you've sold each year, and your ticket revenue generated each year, and then the numbers that you have employed. If you're a venue, that you should have this information readily available. And if you're a promoter or producer, you should have it ready available. And if you want, for a promoter or producer, somewhere in this, probably up on your top section, you may want to note the venues that you've used to give us an idea of the size of your events. So we're going to go to section 4. Of your application there, and again, read the guidelines to make sure that you understand what you're being asked. Failure to complete this section will affect your application. So to make sure that you've ticked all the boxes on the objectives of the scheme to put in there. So for example, the objectives of the scheme are to support employment and well-being in the commercial arts and culture sector, to support the generation of high quality artistic output. It's to support venues, promoters and producers who don't normally receive public funding to provide live performances, and in turn to acquire the services of professional artists, musicians, crews and other staff members involved in live performances, and to assist live performances where capacity for live attendance is restricted due to COVID. So this section will be reviewed to establish that your event is in line with the objectives of the scheme, and to assess issues relating budget, the type of event, has the applicant considered how the event will be executed in line with government guidelines, and does it have a plan should lockdown continue. This part of the application, you must take a lot of care completing and make sure that you're putting your best case forward. So you have the project description. Should your application be successful, this is the text that's going to be used on the government website when the awards are announced, on your contract with the department, and any correspondence that the department is partaking in, including press releases to queries and other items like that. So where your performance is going to be held, the applicant must be based in the Republic of Ireland, and the event must be based, or the venue must be based, located in the Republic of Ireland. So then you have how many performances will there be in total. The total number of performances should not pass the 30th of September. That's the cut-off line, sunset clause for this scheme. You have to have the number of tickets that are available, the number of tickets you're expected to sell, and your expected generated revenue generated from ticket sales. If it's a case that you're not generating any income, that's no problem. Just state for whether or not you're going to charge for your tickets. There is the proposed date for your performances, the completion date, and the commencement date. The commencement date can't start before your letter of award, and the completion date can't be by beyond the 30th of September. There's a question there: is there an element of scalability built into your project plan? So there may be an instance whereby some applicants may not receive an offer of funding of their full request, and in this instance, the department would consider projects that may be produced with a lesser amount. How many core staff does the permanent staff, does the organisation employ? If you have staff working on the production, only an element of their salary may be claimed as part of an employment cost. How many contracts for service do you expect to enter into? This is the number of artists, performers, crew, and other creatives that you are going to engage. How many contracts of service do you expect to enter for this? This is a longer term employment. So again, this is employment for the production only that you record here. Can the production be live streamed or recorded for online transmission for the public to view? This is something that you need to consider in your event plan, especially in the current environment. The evaluation committee will be taking this into account in the scoring framework. Okay. And if it's not live streamed, you need to indicate how you're going to disseminate your production. And this is a very important question. Failure to answer that question will affect your application. You need to indicate the online platform you're going to use. Are you going to use Facebook or YouTube or another? You need to indicate to the paywall that you're going to use if you're going to stream for ticket sales. So Vimeo, Patreon, or Dice. Again, you have to indicate what type of payment is going to occur. Or is it via donation, pay what you think it's worth, or set a ticket price? Again, this is another very important question. You have to confirm if you've carried out a detailed assessment of your activities with regard to the continuing public health measures and guidelines. We're not going to look for information on this. We're not going to look for papers, but we would ask you to confirm that you have done this. And then the end of it, hold on a second. If you have any additional information that you want to give to the department, we would ask for this not to be too detailed, maybe 100 words. Okay. So again, when you're completing the section 5 for your income and costs, we ask you to refer to the guidelines for both eligible and ineligible costs that are outlined in the guidelines. We would ask you to not add any extra categories to any of these sections. If you have a category that you're not too sure, stick it in the closest category that you can, and maybe provide the detail in your 100 words in the box beforehand. So for your total income, we're going to ask you to give us this. Again, if you don't expect any income, just say nil. And your eligible costs, the costs that are required to complete your production only should go into the eligible costs. Not all costs are eligible under the scheme. So make sure that you read the guidelines to ensure what's eligible and what's not eligible. So the eligible costs are artist fees and wages. Wages are for contracts of service, and fees are contracts for service. For your technical crew, wages and fees for the period of the production. If this is a contract for service, you'd be asked to provide pay details for the period of the event. Then you have your production and technical costs. This would be your set build, your rehearsals, and things like that. You've got your creative team fees. You've your video streaming costs. You have your technical equipment hire, and then you have management costs. Now, this is to include your promoter or your producer fees, and they are both eligible, and these fees should be in line with the industry average. So then you have venue costs, and these have to include crew, overhead, payroll for the duration of the production only. So this would be your staff that you're going to bring back to work during the time, and any cost that's associated with your venue. So overheads should not be billed separately on the top of the venue costs. If you're renting a venue, they have to include their electricity and things like that included in their venue cost. Annual insurance costs aren't eligible, and we want to see for the venue cost just one overall cost for a venue. So if you're renting a venue, that's probably going to be pretty easy to do. But if you are a venue and you are trying to estimate what your costs are, pull what you think is necessary together and stick them in that category there. So then you have your health and safety. And this cost should include all costs relating to, for instance, your COVID officer, if you have extra cleaning, and if that's not included in any other category. I know some people have, in the last scheme, they included cleaning as part of their venue costs. So if you're not including it in your venue costs, they're included in your health and safety and your security there. Intellectual property costs. This is, for license fees that may be required for theatre productions. You have event insurance. So while we're not going to, the department won't cover your annual insurance costs, it will cover insurance for the period of the event. Then you have your marketing and promotion. These are fees that should be in line with the size of the event and the number of tickets due to be sold. Okay. So then we're down to the ineligible costs. Actually, I just want to go back for a second in relation to VAT. If you can claim VAT on your grant amount is going to be based on the VAT exclusive amount. If you can't claim VAT for your event, your grant will be based on the total amount, and we will be looking for confirmation from your accountant that you won't be able to claim back the VAT. So then we're on to the ineligible costs. Accountancy and audit fees, legal costs, rates and equipment purchases, they don't fall under the eligible costs. So I'm just going to walk down to 5C because this is a bit different from the last pilot scheme. We're asking an extra question there to provide your artists and crew costs as a percentage of your overall costs. It's very important for you to answer this question and to give us this percentage. So we are expecting the first two lines of your eligible costs there, which are your wages and your technical crew fees, and to work it as a percentage of your total spend. And failure to produce that percentage will affect your application. So then the next bit then for procurement. The department acknowledges that in most cases that you've already completed some form of procurement on your services. So you will have to state that you have a payment stage that you have complied with your procurement process. So we have section here 6 now, which is the funding summary, grant sought and employment created. So the grant available is from €10,000 up to 800,000 is available. The scheme is seeking proposals to fund projects on the basis of paid invoices, which is a mature liability basis. So you have your expected income from 5A. So again, if that's nil, just state that there. You have your total eligible costs from the previous section 5B. Please check that the figures agree to the what you've said in your previous section. Failure to spot the differences or errors may affect your application. Again, for total ineligible costs from section 5C, again, please check your figures agree, because failure to spot any errors will affect your application. And then you have your amount of grant sought under the application. So to make sure that you're only seeking funding for the eligible parts of your costs, the department won't be funding anything under the ineligible section. And then we have a question here on the estimate number of days of employment. As this is an employment scheme, we're looking to see for the creation of employment opportunities. The department does need an indication of what employment will be created by the application in relation to artists, performers and crew, other creators and venue staff if you're renting venues. That information is very important. Again, if that's left out, it will affect your application. So then we come to matched funding. So if you do have matched funding, we'd like for evidence to be provided in the form of a bank statement or an accountant's letter. There'll be events where you're using ticket income. Please don't stick the estimated ticket income there, because you can't provide any evidence of that. Your tickets aren't sold yet. So yeah. So now we're at the end of the application. So you've got your section 7. This does have to be dated and signed. Failure to sign and date the application will affect it. The person signing the application needs to be a member of management or somebody with authority to sign the contract if you're successful under the scheme. So then we're at the bottom of this to give you an idea of what it is that we're looking for to come into the department. Again, it's a single attachment containing all your relevant information. So this can't be in 7 or 8 different pages. It has to be in one scanned format. So it can either be in Word or it can be a PDF. To be emailed only into the department at liveperformance2021 at tcagsm@.gov.ie and insert in the subject line Live Performance Support Scheme 2021. It's to be submitted before the 14th of April at 1 o'clock. Again, it's to be in a Word or PDF format. It should not be password protected and there should be no other attachments. If you're providing evidence of your matched funding, put it with the one document and scan it all together. It's advisable not to leave the emailing of the document to the last minute. We're expecting a very high volume of applications for this scheme, and it's imperative that all applications are received on time in order to be considered. So I think I've gone through it. I might have gone through it a bit too quick, but if you have any questions, just email the live performance mailbox. And Mary, we've got the final points there if you want to go through.
Okay. Thank you, Letitia. Am I not muted, am I? Okay. So many of you will sit down to fill out your application form and you're going to get stuck. So don't ring us, send us an email and we'll reply to your question in writing and we will make that reply available to everybody. Last time we accepted phone calls. Now we really do want to help you. We want to be as helpful as we can, but this time we've decided We're going to reply to everybody in writing, and this is how we think it's best to help you this time around. Don't allow, when you're filling out your application, allow for time for something to go wrong. How many times has your Wi-Fi failed? Or even if you think about when you send an email, sometimes it can take a few minutes or even a few hours to pass. If your application is received by the department 1 minute late, it's late and we will not be accepting it. So 12 o'clock on the 14th of April isn't a good time to start filling out your application. It isn't even a good time to be finishing your application form. I think you should be really thinking about sending your application form to us at the latest on the 13th if you want to be absolutely sure. Don't send us an application form that doesn't have every single question filled out, because then it becomes ineligible. And what else we want to say there? And it's a competitive process. I'd like to go back and repeat that not just venues are eligible to apply. You don't have to have a venue to apply. You can apply if you are a promoter or a producer. And in a way that your ability to show us that you can do that is more important than that you are a venue. So with that, I think I'll say that we're looking forward to receiving your applications. Thank you for listening to us, and hand back to Teresa.
Thanks very much, Natisha and Mary. And we're now going to turn to the question and answer section of the event. And you will be aware that as part of your registration process, we invited you to submit questions, and we received over 150. Now, many of these questions have already been addressed by Natisha and Mary in their presentation, but we have collated the top 12 most frequently asked questions, and we're going to now put those to Alison, to Mary and to Natisha to answer. If your question isn't answered today, or if you are submitting an additional question through the webinar box, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, we will be collating those and sending them to the department. And they're going to answer those by Friday. And the answers will be available on their FAQ section of the Live Performance Support Scheme page. And the link for that is at the bottom of the page. So I'm going to turn first of all to Alison to ask a few questions. Hi, Alison.
Hi,
so, Alison, we've had a few questions around the area of performance types and venues. So if I could just ask you, first of all, can you provide a definition for a live performance? And are any performance types excluded?
Well, there's many types of performance noted on the application form, broadly covering music and theatre. But if there's a type of performance not mentioned in including, I'd ask that they submit a query to our mailbox, and we can respond and update our FAQs with that response as well. Again, with live performance, it has a broad meaning, but it could be seen as the live delivery of a performance by artists or performers that's intended for a live audience or streamed in the event that restrictions will not allow for an audience to attend.
Okay, great, thank you. Is the scheme applicable for the live streaming of concerts with several artists separately performing live from their own home, for example?
Yes, we could consider applications of that sort, yes.
Okay, great. Are a series of events in the same or different locations over a period of weeks or months considered acceptable?
Again, yes, we will consider such applications.
If a venue is applying to the scheme, can a promoter using that venue apply for the scheme for a different event?
Yes, a venue can make an application, and a promoter can also rent that venue for a separate programme or event as a different application, and that's the important piece, that it has to be as part of a different application.
Okay. Does the live performance event have to have an admission fee, or can it be a free event?
No, an event could be either ticketed with an admission fee or free to attend.
So just a couple of questions on the application criteria. Can promoters with experience delivering non-ticketed or free events apply?
Yes, they can apply.
Okay. And how long does an applicant have before they have to confirm acceptance of the LPSS offer?
Okay. Well, when an applicant receives an offer of funding, they'll have 10 days to accept the offer and to return to their signed SLA and other required docs.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Alison. Letitia, could I ask you just a few questions? So Letitia, a few questions on eligible costs. Are venue rental fees included as an eligible cost for the vital health and safety preparations, set construction, technical and dress rehearsals, and removal periods?
Yes. Rehearsal fees, for example, as you laid out, rehearsal time and stage build time would be considered eligible costs under venue rental costs, yes.
Great. And just a couple of questions about assessment of applications. Where can an applicant find out more about the evaluation criteria for the scheme? And will there be weighted marks for online performances?
Information in relation to the evaluation criteria can be found in the guidelines and the guideline document for the scheme, and details of how the production can be live streamed or recorded for the public to view if the performance is unavailable. To have a live audience in attendance is actually requested. Yeah.
Okay. So who will be adjudicating the LPSS applications, and what are their credentials or qualifications?
We're going to use the same approach as the live performance, and the panel is going to be made up of industry experts and experienced civil servants.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Letitia. I just have a few questions for Mary. Hi, Mary. Where can we find some more information on the upcoming 14 million Music Entertainment Business Assistance Scheme?
Teresa, there is no more information available on that than has already been published. But and just to give you a summary of that, for people who didn't qualify for the CRSS or who won't qualify for the Small Business Assistance Scheme for COVID, that's the new scheme that's launched by the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment. There will be support available from our department. Minister Catherine Martin has made available €14 million for what we're calling the MEBAS scheme, MEBAS. And that money is a contribution towards business overheads for people who don't qualify for the other schemes. There are 2 flat payments available, €2,500 or €5,000, depending on your turnover. We hope to be able to launch this scheme in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and we will make more information available for it in that time. Thank you, Teresa.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Just one more question. The Small Business Assistance Scheme for COVID scheme informs us that applicants can't apply for both the LPSS and the SBASC. Given that the SBASC covers the needs for the business, why are applicants excluded from applying for both? And could an offer of LPSS funding be rejected in favour of an offer of the SBASC?
Okay, Teresa, thank you very much. This is a really good question, and there's some good news on it. So whoever put forward that question, thank you. Many of you out there will qualify for the Small Business Assistance Scheme for COVID. And the good news is that the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, who runs that scheme, has clarified for us that you can get both the LPSS and the Small Business Assistance Scheme for COVID. So you can get both. So what was published by the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment has now been changed. So you can't get the SBASC and the MEBAS, which is our other 14 million scheme that Catherine Martin launched recently. But you can get both the SBASC and the live performance support scheme. So we will be putting up documentation to that effect, and so also will the Taoiseach's department, the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment. Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks very much, Mary. And that's the end of our questions for now. I just want to thank Alison, Letitia and Mary for answering our questions. And I'm going to pass you back over to Mary Weir now for final comments.
Thank you very much, Teresa. That was fantastic news that Mary Nash had for us there at the end in relation to the small business scheme, and also being eligible for that in addition to applying for the LPSS scheme. At this stage now, I would like to thank everybody again for joining us today. I hope you found this process and this webinar useful. I would like to remind everyone again of that website address that Mary gave, that email address that Mary Nash gave earlier, live performance 2021 at tcagsm.gov.ie, for any questions that anybody has. And as she said earlier, it is important to put your questions in writing. And the importance of that is that all of the questions will be answered for everyone. So they will appear on the FAQ section of the LPSS page on the department's website. As was mentioned earlier, we received 150 questions in advance of the event today. There is still time, and we know we have received questions through the question tab on the webinar this afternoon. And we will ensure that all those questions also make their way to the department so that replies can be placed on the FAQ section of the department's website for the LPSS scheme. It is left to me to once again thank Mary, Alison and Letitia from the department, Ronan and William and Connor from This Is Catapult, the guys at streams.live and our EIAI team for all of the time and effort and energy put into presenting and bringing this event to you this afternoon. And I would finally like to thank Dr. Teresa Ryan for hosting for us today. If you have not already done so and you're not a member of the EIAI, you still have a few minutes left to hit the link button below in relation to registering with us. And I would also like to finally say to everyone, the very best of luck with applications. Make sure that you send in queries that you may have. Look carefully through the guidelines, as Mary has said already. It's a very important thing to do before you fill out your application form. Don't leave it until the last minute. And the very best of luck to everyone. And we look forward to seeing you at live events in the future. Thank you.